The stars above Cauldra burned like frozen fire. Blue suns, crimson dwarfs, streaks of nebulae that glowed across the void. To most people on this alien world, it was beauty. To Lieutenant Marcus Hale, it was a graveyard. He stood on the broken balcony of what had once been a research tower, his boots crunching on shattered glass. Below, the ruins of the human enclave stretched for miles, collapsed walls, scorched craters, and the silent bones of a colony that had tried and failed to survive. The air smelled of ash, even though the fires had gone out months ago. A cold wind whispered through the ruins, carrying the sound of bent steel groaning against itself. Marcus pulled the tattered collar of his jacket higher. The stars gave no comfort. They only reminded him how far from Earth he was and how alone his people had become. "Lieutenant," a soft voice called behind him. He turned. The alien's tall, silver-gray form stepped carefully over the rubble. Vera, his unlikely ally, had eyes like dark pools flecked with blue. Her species, the Zelari, were a people of poets and engineers. But poetry had no answer for war, and engineering had not saved her home either. She carried the same weight Marcus did, survival at any cost. "They're moving again," she said quietly. "Patrols swept the eastern quarter. If we stay here, they will find us." Marcus rubbed his forehead, exhaustion pressing down like gravity. "Where else can we go? The shelters are gone. The tunnels collapsed. We've been running for 6 months, Vera. 6 months of hiding, scavenging, and watching them burn everything." Her voice wavered. "Then maybe it is time to stop running." He studied her face. There was no fear in her eyes anymore, only resignation, the kind of look soldiers carried after watching too many die. Marcus turned back to the sky. "Stop running and we're finished, you know that. There's no one left to fight but us, and his throat tightened. "I can't keep asking people to die for nothing." Silence fell between them. Only the wind and the distant thrum of alien engines filled the night. The enemy, known only as the Vorak Dominion, had come without warning. They were not conquerors in the traditional sense. They were purgers. Wherever they went, cities vanished, species disappeared, and ecosystems were stripped to bare rock. No diplomacy, no surrender, only annihilation. Humanity had resisted longer than anyone expected. Outnumbered, outgunned, scattered across a dozen colony worlds, but stubborn. That stubbornness was why Marcus was still breathing. Yet now, even stubbornness seemed like dust in the wind. Vera stepped closer, her hand brushing the broken balcony rail. What if there was another way? A call for help, not to the Council, not to the fractured fleets, but to the ones they all fear. Marcus frowned. "Who are you talking about?" Her eyes flicked upward toward the stars, as if afraid to speak the name. "The Kayan." The word fell like a blade. Marcus stiffened. The Kayan were legend, no, worse than legend. A species spoken of only in whispers across the galaxy, brutal, unforgiving, a history soaked in blood. Every race told stories of them, of shattered planets and oceans turned red. No one invited the Kayan, no one summoned them, because once they came, they never truly left. "You can't be serious," Marcus said flatly. "That's suicide." "Is it?" Vera's voice was calm. "The Dominion is already killing us. What difference does it make if the Kayan come? At least they might turn their hunger on our enemy." Marcus shook his head. "Or they eat us next." "Perhaps, but what choice is left? You've seen the lists. Earth's fleets are broken. The Council flees from system to system like beggars. My people are scattered to the void. No one is coming to save us, Marcus. No one but them." Her words struck like a hammer. He wanted to argue, to shout, to cling to the tiny flame of human pride. But deep inside, he knew she was right. Humanity had sent distress signals for months. No answers came. The galaxy had decided humans and Zelari were already dead. Marcus stared at the stars again. "How do you even call them? They don't answer normal signals." Vera hesitated. "There is a way, an old frequency hidden in the archives of my people, a pattern older than most empires. We always kept it in case desperation outweighed fear." "And you never mentioned this before." She lowered her gaze. "Because I swore never to use it. My family, they died at the hands of the Kayan. I hated them. I still do. But hatred does not change reality. If we do nothing, the Vorak will erase us completely. Better to gamble with demons than to surrender to oblivion." Marcus clenched his fists. Every instinct screamed this was madness. But then he looked down at the ruins again, bones of children half buried in ash, broken toys in the rubble. He remembered the screams when the bombardment began, the faces of soldiers who trusted him, and the silence that followed. "Show me the archive," he said at last. The hidden chamber lay beneath the ruins of the old university, a vault carved into stone long before the Vorak came. Its doors were half collapsed, but Vera's nimble hands found a path through. Dust choked the air. Shelves of crystalline data cubes lined the walls, glowing faintly with stored memory. At the chamber's heart rested a console, ancient yet alive. Its surface pulsed with faint blue light awaiting a command. Vera approached reverently, brushing dust away. "This is where my ancestors stored the contingency. They believed knowledge must be preserved, even if cursed." She touched a sequence on the console. The light shifted, forming a holographic pattern, an intricate spiral of symbols rotating endlessly. The room seemed colder suddenly, as if the very air recoiled. Marcus felt his stomach knot. "That's it, just a code." "Not just code," she said. "A beacon. It carries meaning the way fire carries heat. Once broadcast, it cannot be taken back. The Kayan will hear, and they will come." He swallowed hard. "And when they do, what do we say? Please kill our enemies, but leave us alone. Do you honestly think they'll listen?" Vera's voice trembled. "I do not know, but I know the Dominion leaves us no future. So what is worse, dying tomorrow or gambling on a chance to live?" Marcus stared at the spiral, the weight of decision pressing on his chest like a mountain. This wasn't just survival. It was damnation by choice. If humanity lit this signal, history would never forgive them. Maybe there would be no history left to forgive. His hand hovered over the console. The thought struck him. This is what it means to be human. To take the impossible gamble when no one else will, to fight even if the fight kills you. Slowly, deliberately, Marcus pressed his palm to the control. The console flared. The spiral expanded, racing outward, burning brighter than any sun. A frequency older than empires surged into the void, faster than light, carrying with it a message not of words but of intent. A cry of desperation. A final call. The walls shook. The vault seemed to groan, as if the universe itself had felt the decision. Then silence. Marcus pulled his hand back, his pulse hammering. "It's done." Vera's expression was unreadable. Relief, fear, both. "Now we wait." They returned to the surface. The night sky above seemed different now, heavier, as if holding its breath. Marcus stared at the stars, wondering if he had just doomed them all. Vera's voice was soft beside him. "When they come, it will not be subtle. The Kayan are not subtle." Marcus exhaled slowly. "Then let's hope they hate the Dominion more than they hate us." The wind howled through the ruins, carrying the faint echo of engines in the distance. The Vorak patrols closing in. Soon there would be no time left to doubt. And far beyond the edge of known space, in the cold places where no empire dared tread, something stirred. Something ancient, something hungry. Something listening. Part 2, When Predators Answer. Dawn never truly touched Caldra. Its red dwarf sun only thinned the dark. The ruins glowed iron-brown, the sky a bruise. Marcus, Hale, and Vera waited on the university roof, rifles across their knees, the city's dead avenues yawning like dry rivers below. The Vorak arrived first. 6 skimmers crossed the horizon in a low V, their engines whining, hulls bristling with antennae and hooked fins. They slid over broken towers and the skeletal frames of bridges, hunting the heat of breath, the salt of skin, the noise of hope. Vorak soldiers wore mirrored masks and segmented armor like overlapping teeth. They never spoke on open channels. They only measured, catalogued, erased. Vera's fingers tightened on her weapon. "They will sweep the roof last. We have minutes." Marcus glanced at the empty sky, his chest tight. "If we called devils, where are they?" He swallowed. "We move on my mark, down 2 levels, through the lecture hall, across the..." The world changed. Sound dropped away, as if some invisible hand cupped the city and smothered every echo. The skimmers faltered mid-arc, engines choking. Dust lifted from the streets and hung motionless, grains frozen in the air like a field of tiny stars. Then the sky split. Not with light, not at first, but with pressure. An ache in bone, a weight behind the eyes. Space above the city flexed and tore along a curve that made no Euclidean sense, and through it slid a shape too vast to belong to ships or whales or anything that had ever swum an ocean. It was alive. The Kayan Leviathan eclipsed the half-sun, its skin a matte night broken by rivers of faint bioluminescence that pulsed like breath. Along its flanks grew towers of grown metal, veined with translucent cartilage. Filaments uncoiled from its belly, long, jointed, ending in nodes that blinked with cold fire. Smaller organisms clustered around it like remeras, darting spear shapes, bulbous carrier pods, twisting spindles that sang in subsonic thrum. Vera's eyes widened, old nightmares running across her face. "They came," she whispered, the words barely sound. The Vorak tried to run. Their skimmers clawed for altitude, scattering toward the periphery. But the weight in the air, whatever field held the dust and stilled the wind, held them too. The skimmers drifted sideways like dead leaves. Something from the Leviathan's underside rippled, and lances of pale, silent force stitched the vehicles apart. No fire, just absence. 6 precise erasures, and the skimmers became drifting confetti. Marcus exhaled, both horrified and relieved. They just unmade them. The Leviathan rotated, angling a lengthwise ridge toward the campus. Filaments unfurled, questing. One descended toward the roof, halting a dozen meters above the broken concrete. It ended in a bud the size of a man, which peeled open with wet, plant-like grace. A figure stepped out. The Kayan emissary was not tall. That shocked Marcus. He'd imagined a giant, but this being stood barely to his shoulder, wrapped in a neutral cloak of woven biofiber. Beneath, plates of natural armor gleamed like oiled obsidian, carved by age or ritual with fine glyphs. Light moved under the plates like glowworms threading tunnels. Their face was a triangular mask grown from living resin, smooth except for 3 breathing slits and 2 deep-set eyes. A color Marcus couldn't name, shifting between coal and stormglass. They smelled of cold rain on iron. The emissary stepped onto the roof as if gravity were optional. The bud closed behind them. The filament rose and hovered like a curious snake. "Who named the fire?" the emissary asked. The voice was low, layered, almost musical. It vibrated in Marcus's ribs more than in his ears. Their mouth did not move. The sound came from within the plates, amplified by the mask. Marcus forced his feet to move. He slung his rifle across his back and stepped forward with open hands. "I did, Marcus Hale of Earth." Vera remained half a step behind, shoulders rigid, grief flickering like lightning in her eyes. The emissary's head tilted, the shifting eyes fixed on Marcus, then slid to Vera, lingering, tasting history. "You broadcast in the predator tongue. Few remember it, fewer dare it. The pattern was true." Their gaze returned to Marcus. "You accept the price." Marcus didn't flinch. "Say it." The emissary's plates clicked softly, a gesture halfway between a nod and the settling of a blade. "Those who call us name a hunt. A hunt ends only when the quarry is ash or bound. We come as fang and leash. We will break your enemy while you hold our chain. Fail to hold it, and the hunt widens until it finds a new leash or devours all within scent." Vera whispered, "Leash." The emissary turned slightly, including her. "We are what your legends made us, a people bred in war until restraint was a craft we learned late and fearfully. We do not walk among the gentle without a leash." Their attention returned to Marcus. "Will you leash us?" Marcus understood only pieces, but the heart of it was clear. If they called the Kayan, they had to control them or die in the storm they'd invited. He felt the cold shape of the choice settle in his palms. Made for war didn't only describe the Kayan. He nodded once. "If leashing you is how we keep this hunt from swallowing more than the Vorak, yes, tell me how." The emissary drew a slender rod from their cloak. It grew from their hand, not manufactured. Fibers spiraled out and hardened to glossy dark. Tiny vents along its length side. The emissary pointed it at Marcus's chest, then angled it to a broken pillar beside him. They traced a sigil in the dust with the rod's tip, a curve that folded into itself, a loop knotted with thorns. "Blood," the emissary said simply. "You press your hand here, you speak your hunt. The rod keys to your pattern. While breath moves in you, our line obeys the rod inside the boundaries of the hunt you name. If you die, the rod goes to the next you mark." The emissary looked at Vera. "Choose a binder." Marcus's gaze flicked to her. The air between them was full of history. The tunnel collapses she'd led them through, the children she had buried with her own hands, the signal she'd had the courage to unearth. He nodded. "Vera." Her features twitched. "Me." "You saved us more than once," Marcus said. "And you're not human. If the Vorak target me, the leash doesn't die with me." The emissary's eyes warmed, no brighter but less distant. "Predator learns, good." Marcus crouched by the sigil. The dust was cold through his glove. He tugged the glove off with his teeth and pressed his palm to the knot of thorns. The rod hummed. Tiny needles kissed his skin. Warmth spilled into his hand and then back out, a loop. The dust drank a few drops of blood and bloomed a dull, carmine glow. "Name your hunt," the emissary said. Marcus looked up at the Leviathan blotting the sky, then at the dead skimmers drifting like shadows. He pictured maps, Vorak Starfield's spreading system by system, and the names he refused to let become gravestones: Earth, Cauldra, Zelari homeworlds, all the places where songs still had a chance to be sung. "Our hunt is the Vorak Dominion," he said. "Targets, command ships, harvest platforms, ground purgers, their leadership, boundaries, combatants only, civilian ships, habitats, ecosystems are off-limits." He drew a careful breath. "Duration, until the Vorak sue for peace, fall to disarmament, or are unable to continue extermination." Vera leaned in, her voice very small. "Marcus, can you limit asterisk predators by word?" "We can limit asterisk ourselves asterisk," he murmured back. "If they're serious, we'll see." The emissary held very still as the rod drank his pattern. Then they lifted it. The glow and the dust died, but something invisible lingered, as if a string had been tied between his chest and the rod. It felt like the weight of a promise. "It is leashed," the emissary said. "Name of this line, Cinderline, my name, Ash of Cinderline, I bear the oath. I will test your leash, Marcus, Hail of Earth." "Test it how?" Ash of Cinderline lifted a hand. Far above, one of the smaller spear shapes peeled from the Leviathan and knifed toward the horizon. It vanished. A beat later, the eastern sky pulsed. On the far ridge of Vorak Relay Tower, one Marcus had not known remained, folded in on itself, and was gone. Ash of Cinderline cocked their head. "Your boundary said command and purge your assets. I tested with a relay that routes purge orders. The leash did not burn me. Good." They paused. The eyes behind the mask deepened. "A different test." The bud behind them opened again. Another Kayan emerged, taller, heavier, plates scored with the marks of many hunts. Their gait had the hungry eagerness of a hunting dog scenting a fresh trail. They looked at Vera. Vera took a step back, the breath catching in her throat. "Stop," Marcus said, instinct tighter than reason. The taller Kayan froze mid-step. Ash of Cinderline didn't move. Marcus felt the rod's ghost weight tug against his sternum, as if he'd leaned into wind. "You touch her only if she attacks. She is under our protection. All civilians are." Ash of Cinderline's head dipped a fraction. "Leash holds," they gestured. The taller Kayan backed away, reluctant but obedient. The relief that ran through Vera made Marcus's knees soft. She looked at him, and for a moment the grief inside her had a little less room. "Your enemy gathers," Ash of Cinderline said. "The beacon you used is old. The Vorak learned to taste its afterscent long ago. They will come with a harvester to grind this city and make an example of your call." Marcus set his jaw. "Then we intercept before they're in range." "We intercept," Ash of Cinderline agreed. "But Cinderline does not break hunts alone. Your leash is not a symbol, it is a harness. You fight with us. We move now." A quiet thumping rose at the edge of hearing, a biological drumbeat. The Leviathan's filaments braided into a ramp of flexing cartilage. Pods blossomed along its length like fruit. One settled on the roof, opened its mouth of silky cilia, and exhaled a smell like rain after drought. Ash of Cinderline stepped aside, offering the path as if they were opening a door to a friend's home. "Enter. We will speak tactics in the mouth of the ship." Vera hesitated. Marcus squeezed her shoulder. "I know," he said. "Me too." They went. Inside the pod, the air was cool and slightly humid. Fibrous walls breathed slowly, a living diaphragm. Seats weren't seats but grown cradles that shaped themselves to their bodies. Vines from the ceiling brushed their wrists, sampling, then retracted with a satisfied click. Where a cockpit window should have been, a membrane thinned, and the city beyond swam into view, overlaid with ghost lines and nodal flares. Vorak heat signatures, radiation plumes, the faint glow where the call had scraped the sky. Ash of Cinderline touched a rib-like strut. The view zoomed, swiveled, drifted through rubble without moving, the ship's senses free of any one eye. "Here," they said, pointing to the east. A swarm of distant motes shimmered, too regular for dust. "Harvester escorts, 3 scythe frigates, 12 cutters, 1 silencer. The harvester itself is cored by a singularity drill. It will punch your mantle and drink your air. We will cut escorts, board, and rot the core. You will blind their silencer and jam their command mesh so their purge orders die whispering." "Human equipment is scavenged," Marcus said. We have a comms dish, an old coil gun, 2 EMP shells, and a squad of people who haven't slept properly in a week. Ash of Cinderline made the rattling click again, a sound Marcus was beginning to read as faint amusement. Predators do not list what they lack, they plan with what they have. Their eyes slid to Vera. Zelari work songs are half mathematics, yes. Vera blinked. Yes, our builders sing when they weave resonant structures. It keeps phase drift from shattering the... Good, you will sing to our jammers. Your harmonics braid well with ours. Vera stared. You know our songs. We remember what we have broken, Ash of Cinderline said softly. We learn so we do not break the same way twice. Silence for a heartbeat, then Marcus leaned forward. We launch in 30 seconds, he said, making it true by speaking it. Ash, if we win, if we break this harvester, what then? Ash of Cinderline touched their mask with 2 plated fingers, a gesture like a blessing or a restraint. Then we pull at the net. The harvester came along a line to a hand. We will find the hand, follow the arm, and teach the brain to fear your name. The pod shuddered. The ramp outside flexed. The hub's membranes tightened. A scent like charged air filled Marcus's nose. Marcus, Vera said quietly, if their leash is real, you must live. He looked at her. A dozen things crowded his mouth and none fit. He settled for the smallest, honest one. So do you. Ash of Cinderline watched them with that unreadable, not quite stillness. You two are the right kind of afraid, they said. Good. The pod lurched as the Leviathan's filament flung it outward with terrifying grace. The city fell away. The sky widened to a dark river. Far ahead, the Vorax swarm grew teeth. They hit the escorts like a storm of scalpels. Cinderline's spearships slid between cutters and scythes, carving piecewise holes that never blossomed into fire because fire requires matter, and the lances made clean asterisk lack asterisk. The Vorak fired back bright beams that splashed on invisible layers the pod tasted as cold sweetness. Marcus toggled through views, fed targeting arcs into the pod's mind the way he'd once guided a rifle's sights. The coil gun thumped, a crude punch in a ballet of knives, but the pod caught the slug in mid-flight, swallowed it, and spat it back as a whisper that killed a cutter's guidance array dead. Vera sang. It wasn't a song meant for ears. It was a shaping hum, a measured stack of tones that moved like bridges being built in the air. The pod responded, membranes stiffened, fibers braided, a low harmonic beat spread through the swarm. On the tactical overlay, the Vorax silencer, a ship built to smear and crush frequencies, stuttered and dropped out of mesh. A dozen Vorak fighters peeled away, blind and alone. Ash of Cinderline narrated in calm, clipped lines. 2 scythes down, cutters 7 through 10 broken, silencer choking. The harvester is opening its mantle mouth, their drill is spinning. Marcus swallowed against the memory of earthquakes, the smell of burned stone. We board now or we don't board at all. Yes. The pod folded around them like a seed against a storm. The view pinholed down to a tunnel, the harvester's armored maw irising open like the pupil of a god. Inside, the singularity drill spun, a heart of night, caged in rings that shed blue-white arcs. Jammer in 3, Vera breathed between tones. 2, 1, now. Her last note cut. The pod screamed, not in sound, but in a pressure that made Marcus's vision go white around the edges. The pod's skin flashed with a lattice of interlocking waves. The harvester's rings jerked. The drill hiccuped. Leash holder, Ash of Cinderline said, and thrust the rod into Marcus's hands. The glass-dark length vibrated with stored purpose. Hold us steady. How? Wanted, Ash said simply. Marcus wanted, not with poetry, with everything that had been taken and everything that might still be saved. He planted his boots, locked his elbows, and pushed his will through the rod like a diver pushing breath against depth. The ship shuddered around them, but it also asterisk listened. The pod tightened, vectors aligning. They threaded the needle of the harvester's open throat. Impact, not collision, but penetration. The pod bit the harvester from inside, extruding hooks and needles that drank power, ate signal, chewed command lines as if they were gristle. The pod's mouth irised. Ash of Cinderline leapt through. Stay, they told Marcus and Vera, already moving. Guard the leash. If we fall feral, burn us. Marcus stared after them. Vera's hand found the rod too, her fingertips brushing his. If they fall feral, she whispered, can we burn them? I hope we never find out. The membrane window showed Ash of Cinderline in a stormlit cathedral of machinery, a black angel cutting cables with a blade that grew from their wrist. Vorak drones launched from the walls like hornets. Ash moved through them like a memory of teeth. Outside, the swarm fought and fed, Cinderline burning like cold stars as they carved the escort screen into elegant ruins. The Harvester shuddered, rings seized, the Singularity heart writhed. Core infection at 60%, Vera reported, eyes flicking with the rhythm of the harmonics she held. Sweat beadlit her temples. Marcus more Vorak inbound, a second wave, trajectory not from their nearest base, from a deep vector, that's. The tactical overlay widened. New mass signatures spilled into the edge of sense, not escorts, not cutters. An armada. At its center, a shape unlike the rest, angular where Vorak favored curves braced with spines that looked like locked jaws. It drank light made of something that pulled color out of the spectrum. The pod struggled to outline it and failed. Every time the view tried to draw it, the shape came out damaged. Marcus didn't need a label to know, flagship, or worse. Ash of Cinderline froze mid-cut. Their voice entered the pod numb and quiet. They brought a grave keeper. Vera went still. What is that? The ship they send when a species is almost erased, Ash said. It carries the recorders, it writes the epitaph, it buries worlds. Marcus tightened his grip on the rod. Can we run? We never run from gravekeepers, Ash said. We ruin them or we die. The Singularity heart flared. The Harvester tried to close its mouth to crush the pod like a seed. The pod's fibers braced and groaned. The leash in Marcus's hands burned ice-hot. Ash, Marcus said, keeping his voice level by will alone, tell me we can kill both. We can kill one, Ash of Cinderline answered, and we can maim the other badly enough to make it remember your name. The pod bucked. Warning glyphs rippled across the membrane. Outside, the second Vorak wave spread like a bruise, cutting between Cinderline skirmishers and the horizon. A tone Marcus had not heard before vibrated through the ship. It was not one of Vera's harmonics, not one of the Leviathan's drums. It sounded like a bell struck in a room full of weapons. Ash of Cinderline turned, still inside the Harvester's throat, and looked straight through the membrane at Marcus. Leash holder. To kill the gravekeeper, I must open a mouth that bites worlds. The leash will strain. The hunt's boundary will scream. If you are not stronger than your mercy, it will break. Marcus's mouth went dry. What does open a mouth mean? We will crack Caldra's mantle beneath the gravekeeper, Ash said. Turn the planet's blood into a blade. With your leash, we can angle the blade upward, away from cities, keep the cut shallow enough to scar and not slay. Without it, their voice thinned. Without it, we could drown a hemisphere in fire. Vera's face drained of color. Caldra is already dying. Not yet, Ash said. Choose. Outside, the gravekeeper's flayed geometry turned its dead eye toward the city. The Harvester's core groaned one note lower. The Vorak wave spread its knives. Marcus tightened his hands until the rod dug into bone. He looked at Vera. She looked back. In her gaze, he saw her family's ghosts and the children they hadn't saved and the ones they still might. He saw the ruins that had made him hard and the softness that had somehow survived inside that hardness like a coal under ash. He nodded once. Open your mouth, he told the monster he had leashed. I'll hold it shut enough. Ash of Cinderline bowed their masked head, a gesture that felt impossibly like respect. The pod screamed again, all its fibers leaning into a shape of violence so pure it became almost quiet. The ground far below swelled. A line of bright pain wrote itself across the plain. And as the gravekeeper turned to meet the rising blade, the pod's war mind whispered the one word Marcus did not want to hear. Part 3, the boundary strains. The earth itself roared. From the scarred mantle of Caldra, a wound opened, stretching across the plain like a glowing vein. Magma surged upward, tearing rock and steel alike, hurling chunks of molten stone skyward in incandescent arcs. The planet screamed, and Marcus felt the scream in his bones. The leash burned in his hands. The rod throbbed against his skin, vibrating with a force that felt like it might rip his chest open. His blood pounded to its rhythm, his vision blurring at the edges. Boundary straining, the pod's mind repeated. Ash of Cinderline hung suspended within the Harvester's collapsing throat, arms outstretched, armor plates cracking with heat. They were not moving so much as channeling, holding the fracture open, guiding the surge of planetary fury. Each breath they took shed sparks from their mask. Marcus, Vera's voice broke through the roar. She clutched his arm, her harmonics faltering as she fought to keep the jammers singing. Her song trembled like a cracked bell. If you break, the leash fails, Cauldra burns alive. Marcus gritted his teeth, pouring every fragment of will into the rod. I'm not breaking. The magma wound coiled upward, bending, arching under invisible guidance. Ash of Cinderline's voice entered the pod, ragged but resolute. Leash holder, push left, bend the blade. Marcus shoved against the invisible weight, his entire body straining as if he were holding a collapsing building with bare arms. The molten surge obeyed, slashing sideways, climbing toward the void where the Gravekeeper loomed. The Vorak flagship shifted, its geometry splitting like a wound. Its hull unfolded into impossible planes braced by dark spines. Energy flared along its surface, a barrier forming to blunt the rising strike. The leash screamed. Marcus's nose bled, his chest burned. He dimly felt Vera's hand over his, trying to steady him, her song rising again in fractured tones. And then the world broke open. The magma blade erupted into the sky, a spear of Cauldra's lifeblood hurled into the heavens. It slashed across the void, smashing into the Gravekeeper's barrier. For an instant, the night turned white. The barrier held, then shattered. The blade cut deep. The Gravekeeper reeled, its hull spasming in jagged geometry. Dark fire spilled from its wounds, fragments of Vorak hull plating drifting like dead leaves. The ship's scream echoed in every frequency at once, a sound that made Marcus want to tear his ears out. But the leash was fraying. The molten surge lashed too wide, spilling across the plain, racing toward the ruins of the city. Marcus felt it like rain slipping through his hands. He screamed, forcing everything he was into the leash. His memories, his anger, his stubborn refusal to let go. The rod seared his palms, filling the air with the smell of burned skin. Hold, Ash of Cinderline roared, their voice nearly lost in the chaos. Marcus held. The lava torrent bent, arcing away from the ruins, slamming harmlessly into a collapsed canyon. The city was spared, barely. Then the blade guttered out. The earth's wound sealed in slow, grinding spasms, magma retreating like a tide. The sky dimmed. The Gravekeeper drifted, crippled but not destroyed. Its spine still twitched, its singular geometry trying to heal. The Harvester was finished. Ash of Cinderline tore free of its collapsing throat as the Singularity drill folded inward and detonated in silent implosion, pulling the massive structure into itself. Vorak escorts scattered like frightened insects, their comms mesh in ruins. Marcus collapsed into the pod's cradle, gasping, the leash rod still fused to his hand. His vision swam, black spots dancing before his eyes. Vera caught him, pressing a cool cloth grown from the pod itself against his bloody face. You held it, she whispered. Awe and fear mingled in her tone. You actually held it. Ash of Cinderline landed lightly in the pod, armor scorched, movements weary but sharp. Their mask split along hairline seams, venting steam. The hunt marks you, Marcus, Hail of Earth. No leash holder has bent a world's blade on their first call. Marcus tried to laugh but coughed instead. Glad to impress. How long until that thing, he pointed weakly at the wounded Gravekeeper, gets back up? Ash's shifting eyes flickered. Not long, it bleeds, but it is not slain, and others will come. The Vorak will not forgive this wound. Vera's shoulders sagged. Then what have we bought with all this? Ash's voice softened, strangely reverent. Time and fear. The pod rejoined the Leviathan above. From the city below, survivors emerged cautiously from ruins, staring upward at the impossible sight. A Kayan Leviathan floating like a night ocean, and the Vorak swarm retreating in tatters. Whispers spread like fire. They're fighting for us. The monsters answered. We might live. Marcus watched from the pod window, silent. He had seen hope before, fragile, brief, easy to break. But this hope felt heavier, more dangerous, because it wasn't built on survival alone. It was built on a gamble with devils. Ash of Cinderline studied him. You wonder if the leash will hold tomorrow. Marcus didn't look away. I wonder if I'll still want it to. Ash's head tilted as though weighing his words. Good, that is the right fear. Night fell again. The survivors gathered in the shadows of the Leviathan, building fires in broken streets, watching the sky for more Vorak. Children huddled close to mothers, their eyes reflecting flame. Vera sat beside Marcus, her voice low. Do you realize what you've done? You've leashed a legend. Every species that hears this will remember. Humanity won't just be the stubborn little race anymore. We'll be the ones who asterisk called the Cayenne asterisk. Marcus stared into the fire. Then let's make sure we live long enough for that to matter. High above, the gravekeeper's wounded hull pulsed faintly like a dying star. But its eye was still open, still watching. The fires of the ruined city burned long into the night. Survivors whispered in alleys, scavenging scraps of food and water, their voices trembling between hope and terror. Overhead, the Cayenne Leviathan floated like a second moon, its bioluminescent rivers pulsing with slow breath. For the first time in months, the Vorak had retreated, but no one celebrated loudly. Everyone knew what they had seen, monsters unleashed to fight monsters. And monsters, no matter whose side they stood on, were never safe. The Council reacts. The Galactic Council's broadcast came 3 days later. Holographic projectors flickered to life in the square, where cracked statues and broken fountains still stood like skeletal witnesses. Hundreds of survivors gathered, their faces gaunt, eyes hollow. The Council's spires of glass and ivory shimmered on the projection, so distant, so untouched. An elder Orvani delegate, feathers glistening with ceremonial dye, spoke first. His voice was calm, but his eyes darted nervously. Citizens of Cauldra, we acknowledge your suffering. Reports confirm the Vorak assault was repelled, but we are gravely concerned by the method. He paused, feathers trembling. The Cayenne have been called. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some fell to their knees in prayer, others spat in the dust, terrified of what the word meant. Another delegate, a Sarathi matron with skin like polished stone, leaned forward. This council outlawed Cayenne beacons generations ago. To use one is to gamble with extinction. Whoever unleashed that signal has endangered not just Cauldra, but every world in this sector. Marcus stood at the edge of the square, jaw tight, Vera beside him. Her hand brushed the rifle slung at her hip, a nervous tic she had never had before the war. They would rather let us die, she whispered bitterly, than admit the Cayenne saved us. The council speaker's words grew sharper. We demand the immediate surrender of the leash holder. The Cayenne cannot be trusted with such power unmonitored. Deliver him to the council, or we will withdraw all remaining aid. Murmurs swelled through the crowd. Some turned toward Marcus. Others looked away, unwilling to choose. Marcus felt their eyes, felt the weight of the rod bound to his chest, the leash that still pulsed faintly beneath his ribs. He straightened, stepping forward. His voice was hoarse but steady. Then hear me, council. I am Marcus, Hail of Earth. I sent the call, I hold the leash. The square froze. The holographic delegates leaned closer, their faces twisting in shock and fury. You admit it, the Sarathi hissed. Yes, Marcus's gaze swept the crowd. Because no one else came. You sat in your towers while the Vorak burned our homes. You debated while children starved. You abandoned us. The Cayenne answered when no one else would. And as long as I hold this leash, they fight for us, not for conquest, not for blood, but for survival. The Orvani elder's feathers bristled. You think you can control them? That leash will snap, and when it does, the Cayenne will devour you first. Marcus's lips curled into something between a smile and a snarl. Maybe, but better to die fighting with monsters at my side than kneeling while cowards watch. The crowd erupted. Some shouted his name, clapping, cheering through their tears. Others shrank back in fear. The council's projection flickered, their faces vanishing into static. Their parting words echoed in the square. Then humanity has chosen its fate, alone. Tension among allies. That night in the shadow of the Leviathan, Marcus and Vera met with Ash of Cinderline. The Cayenne emissary crouched near a fire, their obsidian plates glowing faintly from within. They did not eat, did not drink. They only listened. They want me delivered like a criminal, Marcus muttered, packing. His voice shook with anger he tried to bury. After everything, after we scarred their gravekeeper, they want me gone. Vera's hand caught his sleeve, pulling him back. They fear you, they fear the leash, and fear makes them blind. Ash of Cinderline's stormglass eyes shifted between them. Good, let them fear. Fear is a weapon. Marcus stopped, staring at the Cayenne. That's what worries me, you enjoy this. Ash tilted their head. Enjoy? No, but fear is what keeps the hunt pure. Without fear, leashes break. Without fear, leash holders become us. The fire crackled between them, throwing shadows across the ruins. Tell me the truth, Marcus said quietly. If the leash fails, if I die, what happens? Ash's plates shifted, the faintest approximation of a shrug. Then the hunt widens until everything burns or a new leash is found. That is what you gambled, Marcus Hale of Earth. That is what you carry. The words weighed heavier than any rifle. Marcus felt Vera's hand tighten on his arm. She spoke instead of him. Then we'll make sure the leash never fails. Ash's eyes glimmered like faint embers. We will see. Fractures in the crowd. By dawn, the city's survivors had split into factions. Some rallied to Marcus, believing the leash was their only chance to survive. They painted his name across the walls, carried torches beneath the Leviathan, and swore loyalty to Earth's stubborn defiance. Others whispered in corners, fearful. They spoke of curses, of planets that had vanished when the Kayan were last unleashed. They said Marcus had doomed them all, and that handing him over to the council might be the only way to survive. The air was thick with tension, every glance carrying the weight of choice. Marcus walked among them, listening to the whispers, meeting the eyes of the loyal and the afraid alike. He carried no weapon now, only the leash rod at his side. Its presence silenced some, enraged others. At one corner of the square, an old woman spat at his feet. You called devils human, they'll eat us next. Marcus looked at her, at the hollow hunger in her face, at the grief carved into every line of her skin. He didn't raise his voice. Maybe, but if I hadn't, we'd already be dead. Her eyes dropped, she said nothing more. The council's betrayal. 2 nights later, betrayal came. At the edge of the ruins, a signal flared, bright, pulsing, council-coded. Marcus and Vera rushed to the site with a squad of survivors, rifles ready. What they found froze them cold. A shuttle council built. Its landing struts sunk into the ash, and around it, 20 armed soldiers from half a dozen species, rifles gleaming with fresh power cells. The commander stepped forward, face hidden behind a mirrored visor. His voice carried through a modulator. By order of the Galactic Council, Marcus Hale is to be taken into custody. Surrender the leash and no blood need spill. Survivors behind Marcus lifted their weapons. Fear and fury boiled in their eyes. Vera whispered at his side, "They came for you." Marcus's jaw locked. No, they came for the leash. Ash of Cinderline emerged from the shadows, silent as smoke. The council's soldiers faltered, some stepping back. Even armored, they felt the predator's presence. Marcus raised his voice, steady and cold. You want me? Then you'll have to decide who terrifies you more, the council you serve or the monsters I leash. The commander hesitated. For a moment, Marcus thought they might back down. Then a rifle discharged. The square erupted in chaos. Part 5, the betrayal in ashes. The square exploded into chaos. Blaster fire tore across the ruins, scorching ancient stone and shattering the brittle bones of statues. Survivors scattered, some returning fire with scavenged rifles, others fleeing into alleys. The council's soldiers moved with practiced precision, their formation tight, their mirrored visors reflecting the flames. Marcus dove behind a fallen column, dragging Vera down with him. Dust rained over them as another volley of shots struck the stone. His heart hammered. They came to kill you, Vera hissed, eyes wide. No, Marcus's jaw tightened as he peeked over the rubble. They came to steal the leash. Across the square, Ash of Cinderline stood utterly still, their silhouette sharp against the firelight. Council soldiers turned their rifles toward the Kayan, fear visible even through their masks. But Ash didn't move. They simply waited. A soldier barked an order. Half the squad advanced on Marcus's position, weapons raised. Vera's hand shook as she reloaded. Marcus were pinned. He touched the rod at his side. It pulsed faintly, warm against his palm, as if it were alive. His breath came hard. He didn't want to use it, not here, not against other people. But the soldiers kept coming. Ash of Cinderline's voice rumbled across the battlefield, low and resonant. Leash holder, command us. Marcus froze. They're not Vorak, they're not the hunt. Your hunt is survival, Ash said simply. These seek your leash. They would break it and sell you to the council's leash of fear. If you hesitate, you lose all. Blaster bolts screamed past. One scorched the wall inches from Vera's head. She flinched but didn't cry out. Her eyes locked on Marcus, fierce, desperate. Marcus, she shouted, decide. Hash the command. The rod seared in his hand. His throat felt tight. But deep inside, past the exhaustion and pain, Marcus found clarity. He rose from cover, lifting the rod high. His voice carried over the roar of battle. Protect the civilians, disable the soldiers, kill only if they force it. The leash flared, the Cayenne moved. Ash of Cinderline leapt forward, plates unfolding with lethal grace. Their body became a storm of obsidian blades and glowing glyphs. Filament drones peeled from the Leviathan overhead, diving like spears of light. They struck the soldiers' weapons, tearing rifles apart with surgical precision. Sparks lit the square like falling stars. The council's squad faltered. Their formation broke under the sudden assault. Marcus pressed the rod tighter, forcing his intent into it. No slaughter, only protection. The Cayenne obeyed. Their attacks shifted, not killing blows but disarms, strikes that shattered armor and ripped power cells from rifles. Soldiers screamed as weapons melted in their hands, but their lives were spared. Still, some resisted. A Sarathi soldier, massive and stone-skinned, charged Marcus with a blade drawn. Marcus raised his rifle too late. And Ash intercepted, striking the blade aside and pinning the Sarathi to the ground. The predator's teeth hovered inches from the soldier's throat, breath steaming against the visor. The leash tugged, trembling, begging Marcus for permission. Marcus's voice cracked with strain. No. Ash stopped. The Sarathi gasped, frozen. Then Ash shoved them aside, turning back to the fight. The leash held. Hash the price of mercy. Within minutes, the square fell silent. Council soldiers lay scattered, disarmed, groaning in the dust. None were dead, not one. Survivors emerged cautiously from cover, their eyes wide. They had seen the Cayenne fight, but they had also seen them restrained. Vera approached Marcus, breath ragged, her face streaked with soot. She gripped his arm, steadying him. "You did it," she whispered. "You leashed them." Marcus's legs trembled beneath him. The rod in his hand burned less now, but he could feel how close it had come to breaking. One wrong word, one faltering thought, and the square would have drowned in blood. Ash of Cinderline approached, obsidian armor cracked, eyes flickering like stormlight. They bowed their heads slightly. The leash held, the hunt narrowed, not widened. "You show strength." Marcus wiped blood from his nose, his chest heaving. "No, I showed mercy. Don't confuse the two." Ash tilted their head. Among predators, mercy is strength. The words lingered in the air, heavier than any praise. Hash division deepens. But mercy carried a cost. That night, arguments raged among the survivors. Some praised Marcus, shouting that he had done what no one else in the galaxy had dared, commanding monsters without becoming one. Others hissed in corners, furious. He should have killed them all. Now the council will just send more. Marcus heard every word. He sat by the fire with Vera, the leash rod across his knees, its faint pulse echoing his heartbeat. His hands still ached from where it had seared him. "They're right," Vera said quietly, staring into the flames. "You spared them. The council will come again, stronger." Marcus's jaw clenched. "If I'd let the Cayenne kill them, we'd be no better than the Vorek. I can't lose that line, Vera, not now." She looked at him, her voice low, almost pleading. "Just promise me you won't lose yourself trying to hold it." He didn't answer, because he didn't know if he could keep that promise. The council's response. At dawn, the council broadcast again. Their faces were harder now, their voices stripped of pretense. "Marcus Hale has rejected lawful authority. He controls a weapon that threatens every world. He is hereby declared an outlaw of the galaxy. Any who aid him are enemies of the council." The message ended with a seal of condemnation, glowing red. Silence hung over the survivors. Then slowly a murmur rose, not fear this time, but defiance. "They abandoned us once. They'll abandon us again." Marcus stays. For the first time, Marcus saw not just desperation in their eyes, but loyalty. Not to the council, not even to humanity, to him. A new threat. But the Vorek were not idle. That evening, the sky lit with streaks of fire. Scouts rushed through the ruins, shouting warnings. New Dominion warships had entered orbit. This time, they weren't sending a harvester. They were sending a fleet. Ash of Cinderline's stormglass eyes narrowed as they studied the descending streaks. This is not retaliation. This is extermination. They send a asterisk scourge fleet, enough to bury not just Cauldra, but its moon and its memory. Vera's voice trembled. Then we're finished. Marcus's grip tightened on the rod. He felt its pulse answer him, alive, eager, hungry. He stood, staring at the sky as fire grew brighter. No, he said, not finished, not yet. Ash's head tilted, reading him. You would leash more of us. Marcus nodded slowly. If this is the end, then I'll make sure it's one the galaxy never forgets. The Leviathan above shuddered, its bioluminescent veins blazing brighter. Pods split open along its flanks, more Cyan emerging, their eyes glowing like coals in the dark. The leash hummed louder, tugging at Marcus's chest, testing him. Vera's hand brushed his, her voice urgent. Marcus, if you leash too many. I know, his voice was steady, steel beneath exhaustion. If I fail, everything burns. He looked at Ash of Cinderline, then help me hold it. Ash bowed, Cinderline does not refuse the hunt. The ground shook as the Scourge fleet descended, and Marcus Hale raised the leash to the sky. The sky over Cauldra burned. Vorak ships descended in waves, their silhouettes blotting out the stars. Scythes, cutters, and silencer craft spread across the heavens like a cancer. At their center, titanic dreadnoughts moved with the slow certainty of executioners. Their hulls glowed with harvest engines, each one capable of reducing cities to ash. The survivors in the ruins looked upward and wept. Some clutched children, some clutched rifles. None believed they could stand against this storm. But above them, the Cyan Leviathan stirred. Its bioluminescent rivers flared brighter, poolsing like veins carrying the blood of a world. From its flanks, new pods blossomed open. Figures emerged one by one, more Cyan, dozens of them, each clad in obsidian plates etched with glyphs of ancient hunts. Their eyes burned like stormglass embers. The leash pulsed in Marcus Hale's chest, stronger than ever. The rod in his hand vibrated with hunger, eager to bind. Vera gripped his arm, her voice low, urgent. Marcus, too many. If you try to leash all of them, it will break you. Marcus's jaw tightened. Then it breaks me, but it doesn't break us. Ash of Cinderline stepped forward, their movements calm, deliberate. Leash holder, to command more of us you must widen the hunt, but every widening risks collapse. You may not survive. Marcus looked from the Leviathan to the burning sky to the terrified faces of survivors in the square. He thought of Earth, of families already gone, of soldiers who died trusting him to lead. He lifted the rod. Then let the leash strain. The hunt is the Scourge fleet. The rod flared. Pain ripped through him, searing, blinding like molten iron poured into his veins. He gasped, falling to one knee. Vera caught him, her own cry breaking free. But the Cyan heard. They moved as one. The storm of predators. The Leviathan sang. Its voice was no sound but vibration, a living drumbeat that shook the ruins and rattled the bones of the planet. Cyan spearships launched from its flanks, slicing into the sky with predatory grace. The Scourge fleet opened fire. Energy beams raked across the heavens, searing trails of white through the dark. Entire blocks of ruins vanished beneath orbital strikes. The air filled with the acrid stink of ozone and burned stone. But the Cyan met them in silence. Their ship slipped between beams with impossible precision, weaving through fire as if dancing. Every strike they landed wasn't an explosion, it was absence. Vorak ships blinked out of existence, sliced into void by weapons that erased matter itself. From the surface, survivors watched in awe and horror. Some cheered, others prayed. Marcus staggered to his feet, gripping the rod with both hands. Every Cyan strike, every motion pulsed through him. His body was a conduit, his mind the leash. The pressure was unbearable. Blood ran from his nose, his ears, staining the rod crimson. Vera's harmonics rose beside him. She sang desperately, weaving Zelari tones into the leash, stabilizing it. Without her, Marcus knew he'd already be ash. Ash of Cinderline stood at his side, their stormglass eyes locked on the sky. You hold a storm with mortal hands, Marcus Hale of Earth. Do not let go. Marcus's voice was a growl through clenched teeth. Not planning to. The flagship emerges. The battle raged for hours, the Scourge fleet bleeding ships. But then the void shifted. From behind the fleet, a new shadow emerged. A ship larger than any Marcus had ever seen. Its hull wasn't built, it was grown, a mass of black geometry that twisted wrong against the stars. At its heart pulsed a dark sphere, a captured singularity chained by Vorak spines. Ash of Cinderline's voice dropped to a whisper. The Maw ship. Vera's song faltered. What is that? The Vorak's oldest predator, Ash replied. A ship that eats worlds whole. They only send it when they wish to erase memory itself. Marcus's hands shook. The leash strained, screaming against his will. He could feel the Kayan hungering, straining to unleash themselves fully. To tear, to devour, to drown the stars in blood. If he loosened his grip for even a heartbeat, the leash would snap, and the Kayan would feast on everything, Vorak and human alike. The breaking point. The Mawship opened its singularity maw. Space around it bent, light curving, stars smearing into spirals. The ruins shook. Survivors screamed as the ground cracked, pulled upward by the ship's hunger. Marcus fell to both knees, the leash rod burning against his chest. His vision blurred, his heart hammered irregularly. Ka. Vera knelt beside him, her hand covering his, her song trembling. You can. Marcus, listen to me. You are not alone. You have me. You have them. Don't let go. Ash's voice rumbled like distant thunder. Leash holder, command us. Marcus lifted the rod with the last of his strength. His voice cracked, but it carried across the battlefield, through every predator bound to him. Strike the Mawship, break its chain. But do not touch the city, do not touch the civilians. By my life, by my leash, you will obey. The rod screamed in his hands. The leash burned him alive. His vision went white. And the Kayan answered. The fang of Cauldra. The Leviathan bent itself, its entire body warping into a weapon. Its bioluminescent rivers flared blindingly, channeling all power into a single point. Its spearships swarmed, diving toward the Mawship like shards of night. The leash strained, trembling on the edge of collapse. Marcus felt it tearing at him, ripping his mind apart. He screamed, blood spraying his lips. Vera held him, her song pouring into the leash, patching every fracture with Zelari harmonics. The Leviathan struck. A blade of pure absence, guided by Marcus's will, lanced across the void. It speared the Mawship's singularity heart. For an instant, the universe itself seemed to hold its breath. Then the Mawship folded inward, its geometry collapsing, its singularity imploding in a bloom of silent annihilation. The Scourge fleet scattered in panic, their formation broken, their comms mesh dead. The Kayan hung in the sky, silent, victorious. The leash went dark. Marcus collapsed into Vera's arms, unconscious, the rod still fused to his hand. His body was limp, pale, barely breathing. Ash of Cinderline knelt beside him, Stormglass eyes unreadable. The leash holder lives, they said softly, but the leash has scarred him. He will not be the same. Vera clutched Marcus tighter, tears streaking her soot-stained face. Then I'll hold it with him, whatever it takes. Ash bowed their head. Good, for the galaxy has seen, and now it will fear. Whispers across the stars. News spread faster than light. Not of the Vorak's Scourge fleet destroyed, armies had fallen before. Not of the Mawship's death, though no one had ever seen one broken. The news that spread, whispered in every council chamber and warship mess, was this. Humanity had leashed the Kayan, and they had bent them to mercy. Some called it impossible, some called it blasphemy, some called it the end of the galaxy as they knew it. But all agreed on one truth. The galaxy's most dangerous predators no longer answered to themselves. They answered to humans. Part 7, the last choice. Marcus Hale woke to silence. The world around him was dim, a cocoon of soft bioluminescence and warm, pulsing walls. The pod cradled him gently, as though the Leviathan itself had chosen not to let him die. Every breath was agony, his body scarred inside and out by the leash's fire. When he tried to move, pain lanced through his chest. The rod was still fused to his palm, its surface blackened, veins of faint crimson pulsing beneath. It felt less like a weapon now and more like a piece of him. A shadow leaned over him. Vera. Her face was drawn, exhaustion carved deep into her eyes, but when she saw his gaze sharpen, she smiled with trembling relief. You're awake, she whispered. I thought, she cut herself off, shaking her head. I thought I lost you. Marcus's throat was dry, his voice ragged. Still here. Her hand gripped his, careful not to touch the rod. You saved us, the Scourge fleet, even the Mawship. You, her voice broke. You did the impossible. Marcus closed his eyes, his breath uneven. No, we did. You held the leash with me. Without your song, I'd be ash. Her grip tightened. Then we'll keep holding it together. A Predator's respect. Ash of Cinderline entered, their stormglass eyes glowing faintly in the pod's dim light. Their plates were cracked, their body marked with the toll of the battle, yet they moved with the same predator's grace. "The leash holder lives," they said simply. Marcus managed a weak smirk. "You sound disappointed." Ash tilted their head. "No, we sound impressed. You bent a Mawship's death song without widening the hunt. Few of our kind could have done the same. You leashed us, Marcus Hale of Earth, and more." Ash's voice lowered, almost reverent. "You leashed yourself asterisk." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "What does that mean?" "It means you did not break," Ash replied. "And because of that, the galaxy trembles." The galaxy trembles. Word had spread. Ships whispered across subspace, carrying stories of Caldra's stand. The Vorax scourge fleet broken. A Mawship slain. Survivors saved not by the Council, not by fleets of polished navies, but by a human with a leash on the Cayenne. Some races hid in terror. Others began sending envoys. And still others whispered about opportunities, alliances, rebellions, wars made possible by humanity's new shadow. The Council met in secret, their chambers filled with fear. Some demanded Marcus's death. Others argued for alliance. All agreed on one thing: humanity was no longer small. They had become something dangerous. Marcus's burden. When Marcus could walk again, he stood with Vera and Ash atop the ruined balcony where it had all begun. The sky above was clear for the first time in months, no Vorax shadows blotting the stars. Survivors moved below, rebuilding, singing, their voices fragile but alive. "They look at me differently now," Marcus murmured. "Not just as a man, as something more, something they're afraid of." Vera touched his arm gently. "Fear can be power, but it can also be poison." Ash stepped closer, their voice steady. "The leash is scarred into you. It will not be passed easily. The galaxy will come for you again, Marcus Hale. The Council, the Vorak, perhaps even those who claim to be allies. All will want the leash. All will fear the leash holder." Marcus turned the rod slowly in his hand, the faint glow pulsing with his heartbeat. "Then maybe it's better if no one holds it. Maybe I should destroy it." Ash's stormglass eyes hardened. "Destroy it and the hunt widens. Without leash we break free. Worlds would burn." Vera's voice was quiet but firm. "And if you keep it, you'll never know peace. Every battle, every war, they'll look to you. You'll be the one holding back the storm. Forever." Marcus closed his eyes. The weight of the choice pressed down harder than any battle. The final choice. Night fell. Marcus walked alone into the ruins, the rod pulsing in his grip. The stars above glowed cold and distant. He thought of Earth, of the colonies lost, of the faces he couldn't save. He thought of the Council's betrayal, the Vorak's endless hunger, the survivors who still believed in him. He thought of the Cayenne, predators leashed, bound to his will, yet still waiting for a chance to slip free. Vera found him there, standing in the shadows. She said nothing, only waiting, trusting him to speak. Marcus lifted the rod toward the sky. His voice was steady, though his heart ached. "The leash stays, not because I want it, but because the galaxy needs it. Someone has to hold the monsters. Someone has to prove mercy is stronger than fear." The rod pulsed once, bright, as though it understood. Vera stepped closer, her hand brushing his. "Then you won't hold it alone." Ash emerged from the shadows, silent as ever. Their stormglass eyes glowed faintly. "Cinderline does not break leashes willingly. If you walk this path, Marcus Hale, we walk beside you. The hunt continues." Marcus looked at them both, human, alien, predator, and for the first time he believed it. They could walk this path together. Epilogue, Whispers of Tomorrow. The Vorak retreated into the dark, their scourge fleet broken, their Mawship dead. But they would return. They always did. The Council plotted in secret, torn between fear and envy. And across the galaxy, whispers spread, of a human who called the most dangerous species, of a man who leashed predators and bent them to mercy. Some called him a savior, others a fool. But all remembered his name. Marcus Hale, the man who held the leash.